Yes, and Good Morning Kenya continues. Thank you for staying with us. Now we get into another conversation right here, and we will be looking at the protection of refugees as we also, head to marking International Women's Day, which will be coming up on the 8th of March. And joining me for the conversation on refugees and what protection do they have in this particular country, we have Madam Jane Waithera Maina. She is the Refugee Consortium of Kenya Women and Girls Empowerment Manager. And on my immediate left, we have Gloria Mwangi, who is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya and the Program Officer, Legal Aid and Governance, Refugee Consortium of Kenya. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
We are glad to have you on the show today.
Yes.
If we may just begin with you explaining or describing to us who a refugee is.
Okay. So first I'd begin by saying there are two types of migrants in Kenya. There's voluntary migrants and then there's forced migrants. So we specifically deal with forced migrants, who include refugees and IDPs. To answer your question, a refugee is defined in international instruments that Kenya has ratified, including the 1951 UN Convention, which defines, and there's also its protocol, 1967, and the 1969 OAU Convention on the specific problems relating to refugees in Africa. So they, and the Refugees Act of Kenya, they all define a refugee as a person who, due to a well-founded fear, leaves his or her country and goes to seek asylum in another country. The reasons for this well-founded fear include fear of persecution on the basis of race, political opinion, social opinion, such things. Yes, that is who a refugee is.
All right, and I want us to get into the Refugee Consortium of Kenya, which is where both of you work. So when was it established, and why was there a need for us to have such?
Yeah, thank you. Refugee Consortium of Kenya is a national non-government organization that was established and founded in the year 1998. Its mission was to be able to promote and protect the well-being of the refugees, like she has already mentioned, their voices and dignity of the forced immigrants in Kenya. At RCK, we achieved this goal through our strategic pillars, and we have like 5 of them. There's the legal aid. We offer a lot of legal aid to the refugees and the asylum seekers and the forced people, the immigrants in Kenya. We are able to represent them in court in case there is anything for them to have in court. We have also peace and social justice. We have women and girls empowerment and mental health, and also the psychosocial support that they require. We deliver this by very strategic approaches of maybe advocacy and a well-thought kind of a leadership with innovation of learning, the capacity building and support for people, and there is partnership and a lot of localization of things that we would need to do for the refugees, and of course there is the strategic communication. So we are based in Kilimani. We have an office here in Mombasa, Garissa, Mwingi, Kakuma, and Dadaab. You realize that these are some of the areas where refugees are quite in their numbers. Yes. Yes.
And speaking of that, maybe how many refugees do we have roughly in Kenya?
According to UNHCR statistics, currently there are around 700,000, but they keep increasing. Yeah.
By the day.
Yes.
And do refugees have the freedom to work? Can they be employed?
Okay, so I'll speak on the rights of refugees, which include the right to work. The Refugees Act 2021 has well-meaning into ensuring that refugees are included in the socioeconomic inclusion of refugees. So they are to be empowered to work and contribute to the local economy of Kenya. So in this you also find that they have the duty to pay taxes, and even with them having the right to work, they can be more self-reliant instead of depending on humanitarian assistance. And the current shift in refugee management allows for this. Like, I know you've heard about the Shirika plan, where the government is looking into transitioning refugees from camp settlements into integrated settlements to ensure that they can be more locally integrated, they can be more empowered socio-economically, and to ensure the self-reliance.
What other rights do they have?
Okay, they have the right to seek asylum, of course, to enter the country. They have the right to, so there are 3 principles of international law which ground their rights. The first one is non-refoulement, which allows for refugees not to be deported. Like, when a refugee gets to the country, the refugee cannot be expelled unless for reasons of being a threat to national security, or they've committed a very serious crime against humanity, and any other crime that is in contravention with the UN provisions. So the second principle is the principle of non-penalization. A refugee cannot be arrested or detained because of their status as a refugee. And the third principle, which underpins their right, is the principle of similar treatment, which provides that refugees should not be discriminated against. They should be treated just like normal people with every right, basically, under the Universal Declaration of Human Rights that we enjoy as Kenyan citizens.
And maybe, how are you able to know that someone is truly in need of seeking asylum in Kenya? Is there a way to know? Are there policies that have been put in place? Are there ways, rather, that have been put in place for you to actually know that, okay, this person truly needs to seek asylum in this country?
Yes, in the Refugees Act, there's the definition of who a refugee is.
Yes.
So when you come into the country as an asylum seeker, the first process is you present yourself to the Department of Refugee Services, that's the government body. You present yourself to the commissioner or an authorized person by the commissioner to go through the refugee status determination. So you should do this upon entry or within 30 days. The commissioner makes a decision on whether this person is actually a refugee from the criteria that is set out in the Act, or whether this person is going through persecution in their country in consideration of all the factors that are provided in Section 3, which is the definition. Thereafter, if the commissioner approves, then status is given. If not, a person who has been rejected, whose status has not been given, goes through the Refugee Status Appeals Committee to present the appeal. After that, if the committee upholds the decision of the commissioner and rejects this person from becoming a refugee in Kenya, the person still has the liberty to go to the High Court for a further appeal. And if the High Court upholds the decision of the Refugee Status Appeals Committee and the commissioner in rejecting this, then this person is, after 60 days, will be subjected to immigration rules, which is deportation.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Maybe what are some of the challenges that you may point out that the refugees may be facing in Kenya? And also maybe as a consortium, what challenges are you facing?
Yeah, thank you. Of course, the challenges that the refugees face in Kenya are quite a number, and that includes like they do not even have the papers when they come in. So she has mentioned that they usually report at the DRS, which is an arm of the government that takes care of the refugees. Another challenge as they come in, you realize that they have gone through a lot of trauma. When we were introducing, we said that there are those who have come with found fears, and they could probably be running away from their country of origin because there is their war, their conflicts. The others could actually be coming because maybe of the political affiliations and things like those ones, and so they are coming for safety. So one of the things that they suffer a lot is actually even the mental trauma. They come with a lot of trauma because others saw their kin being killed. Others have actually been subjected to issues of even sexual and gender-based violence as they are coming into Kenya. So the challenges are many. So when they come to RCK, of course through many other corridors in this country, they report, some of them will find services at RCK. And one of the things that I have noticed with a lot of concern is their mental status is never the same as they are coming in. They may have gone through a lot of trauma, they have gone through issues that have really affected their mental health. And one of the things that we do is that we actually take care of them mentally. So we have a whole a sector, a whole pillar that takes care of their mental health. So it is mental health and psychosocial support. So there's also something else that they do even as they come. One of the other challenges is that they'll come with issues that will need legal address, and our lawyers are well equipped to be able to represent them in court. For cases of SGBV that are affecting SGBV and harmful practices affecting the women and girls, they're taken to court for free. Our advocates are there to be able to represent the refugees in courts. Yes.
I love that you also take care of their mental wellness, because as you said, most of them as they come in the country, they've gone through trauma, you know, they've gone through a lot, you know, from their countries of origin. So knowing that you also look after their mental wellness. So we have a psychologist who come in, or how do you go about that?
We have a well-defined structure. In the communities where they live, you realize that we have refugees who live in camps, and there are those who live in the urban areas. So in every place where they are living, we identify community-based counselors to be able to take care of them, and we empower them with skills like psychological first aid, where they can actually be able to support them, and then before referring them to us as the professionals. So there's that structure whereby they're taken care of at the very early stages of entry in Kenya, and then they can actually be referred to us for psychological support, which is now professional. Then during that time when they're meeting the community-based workers in the camps or even in the areas that they are living, they are the ones who are able even to tell, okay, this case might probably require a legal redress, so they send them for the legal aid. And there are those who will also come, and within where they are living, there are also conflicts within themselves. You realize, if it's an example where they came and two tribes were fighting, you realize that when they come in, they will still continue fighting wherever they are. So there is that peace and social justice where we'll be able to also conduct skills building in the community where they are, and of course like mediation and aspects that will actually be able to bring them together for coexistence with each other. Yes.
Maybe from the challenges that you had mentioned earlier, what should be done to make things easier?
Okay, we have noticed that there's need for them to go through counseling, because most of them present with trauma, as Jane said. And then there's also, we recognize the goodwill of the government in ensuring that they receive documentation after undergoing the refugee status determination. Recently, we saw the Cabinet Secretary gazetting the refugee documents, 6 of them, including the proof of registration, the asylum seekers pass, movement pass, their conventional travel documents. So there has been progressive things in place to ensure that all their challenges are attended to. Yes.
Is there something being done, matters making sure they get integrated, you know, probably into the country, get them integrated into the system?
Okay. So among the durable solutions for refugees includes local integration, where refugees are meant to come into the host country and continue to lead the life that they were living, even better, because now there's no hostility in the host country. So there's things in place like the Shirika plan, where the government seeks to transition refugees from camps to integrated settlements, which, you know, in the camps, the quality of life is not as you'd you're moving from hostility, but the quality in the camps is not the best. So there's that, which when they move to the integrated settlements, it's going to be better for even looking at their right to housing. It's going to be better, a better, safer environment, and also the rights that have been guaranteed in the Refugees Act of Kenya. Yes.
And do they solely rely on the WFP's food for survival? Is this the truth?
Not solely, but yes, one of the partners who also work closely with the refugees is to ensure that they have food. And like you have said, yes, WFP will offer food, but there are also those who are doing some activities that will empower them. And RCK, we are looking very closely to being able to empower them, the women and the girls, just for them to be able to take care of themselves and be able to be independent in a way or the other. Because you realize even the food that they are getting, even from whatever other organizations and partners, it may not be enough. It may not be enough for them. So we are looking at how can they actually be empowered to be able to, of course, take care of their families and their children. And we realize that RCK, that one of the ways to be able to ensure that they are self-sufficient is to actually empower women. We talked about the harmful practices and the SGBV issues, which are a major challenge. Sometimes you may find that this refugee woman is not actually able to step out of the violent relationship with the husband or with the person that they're living with, because they are not able to feed their children. So we look at even having to condone some of those violences just simply because they are not able to help themselves. And so looking at empowering the women and the girls, they may actually be able to stand up and say no to the gender-based violences that they are going through. A girl will be left to go to school and, you know, like feed the family. They say you empower a woman, you empower the whole community, the entire community. And that is actually what we are looking at. When we empower women and when we empower that girl, they'll actually be able to take care of the families, their siblings, and that in that nature. So that is actually one of the things that RCK we are very passionate about, being able to empower a woman and you empower the community. And then they will probably be able to say no to the violence. If someone has raped them, they will actually be able you find that sometimes they will want to put that issue under waters, you know, and not to be addressed. So a woman will actually be able to stand up on herself and say, no, this one I'm going to report. And actually when they report to RCK, we are able to take them through the processes of court, and we ensure that their rights are taken care of. Yes.
And speaking of empowering them, do they allow businesses to happen, maybe in these refugee camps, like in Dadaab? Are they allowed to start their own businesses there?
Oh yes, yes. Where they live, they are actually the ones who kind of are doing the businesses. You realize that if it's a refugee camp, then no host community is going to enter into that camp and stay there. It's specifically for the refugees. So imagine it's a grocery shop, it's actually the refugees who are owning. If it is a utensils shop, it is actually the refugees who own those businesses. And so they're actually empowering themselves in one way or another. Then you realize that also in those camps, if there are any organizations, you realize if you need the community-based workers, it's actually the refugees you're going to empower, and then pay them some money. Of course, not like employment, but you pay some wages for them to be able to continue. But the new Refugees Act, like she has explained, is looking into having them gain even work permits to be able to work, move away from the camps to resettlement areas. Yes.
Yeah. Maybe to you, the lawyer, what policies are there, or what policies have been put in place to ensure their protection, the protection of refugees?
Okay, so in Kenya, the paramount law is the Refugees Act. And then there's now things like, as I mentioned previously, the Shirika Plan, which seeks to ensure their socio-economic inclusion so that they can integrate better into the society. And all the laws that apply to Kenyans apply to refugees. So if it's the Sexual Offences Act, they're protected under it. If it's the Children's Act, they're also protected under it. Yes.
Okay, because my next question was supposed to be what is lacking matters policies that maybe you feel should be implemented. Yeah.
Okay, so what is lacking? Maybe address the issues that they go through. The greatest challenge they go through is with regard to documentation.
Yeah.
So if they do not have these documentations that I spoke about that have been gazetted in Kenya, they have a hard time accessing services like KRA, M-Pesa, Safaricom, financial institutions like banks. They can't open accounts. So the missing link is the most key. I think it's to ensure that they get their documentation. So yeah, so that they can access services better and the integration can be facilitated.
Now, as we gear up to International Women's Day, which is a day that we're both women here, so it's a day that we're really excited about. So maybe what are you doing as a consortium in preparation for that?
I think first and foremost we would need to understand what International Women's Day is. And this is actually a day where it's a global celebration. It's going to be celebrated all over the world. And it is celebrated every 8th March annually or every year. And it is actually a day dedicated to recognizing and honoring the achievements and the contributions of women throughout history and even across all fields. So in a sense, we'll be doing it as a reminder just for us to be able to recognize the ongoing struggles that the refugees, women and girls go through. And this is going to be a day that we are going to have, it's going to be celebrated in every office of our areas. We are going to have women come together and talk about whatever it is that they have achieved. It's going to be a day where we will actually be highlighting and honor the accomplishments that they have been able to do. We'll also be talking about maybe promoting gender equality, which is going to be key, which is also key for women to understand. Because you realize our central theme of this day is to call for all gender equality and inclusion, you know, and this will actually involve advocating for maybe equal opportunities for women and girls, treatment of the same, and of course the rights of women in all aspects of life. That is going to be also another area. We'll also be addressing gender-based violence. International Women's Day is going to bring the attention of the issue of the GBV, including domestic violence, which is is also called intimate partner violence, sexual harassment, any form of sexual harassment that is castigated on women. There's also the issue of FGM. We just celebrated the International Day of Zero Tolerance to FGM, focusing mainly on women. And of course, there are also other early child marriages, which are harmful practices. So we want to actually be drumming that this should not be happening. Maybe we do not have really an issue with the host community on issues of early marriages, but then we'll be speaking loud and clear to be able to ensure that these refugee women and girls they understand their rights. And of course, I talked about empowerment, which I said is a key focus, and we'll actually be encouraging women to be able to come out and pursue their goals. We'll also be challenging stereotypes. This is an area, a day where we will also be speaking about what are some of the stereotypes. Sometimes we have we have forums with them during these such celebrations that they can actually be able to say what are some of the stereotypes that are within themselves, and we can actually help them to challenge such. Yeah, so of course we'll also be working with other partners to be able to make this a success. Yes, and we'll also be calling upon you to be able to join us and talk about International Women's Day. Yes.
We are sure we for sure are going to come in, you know, come on board and help in pushing the envelope. Maybe to you, what's the importance of gender equality, especially you being in a field that is mainly male dominated? What's just the importance of having women also acquire the same, you know, opportunities that men may be having?
So first of all, I'd like to state that women's rights are human rights. There's no criteria to saying men go higher than women. It is very important to protect women because, like they say, Jen said that a woman is...
Once you empower a woman, you empower the entire community.
And a generation at large. So I think it's... The key thing is to break the norms, challenge the biases, and recognize that women can do it as well. So yes, we seek to empower women because for those said reasons.
As we almost come to a close of this, you know, in preparation to the International Women's Day, maybe what message do you have for women out there?
So I would want to say that women need to come together. Of course, we need some global solidarity. In terms of this being a global movement and an opportunity for people worldwide to come together in solidarity and address common challenges that women are facing, and of course work towards a more inclusive and equitable world. Those will be my parting shots. Yes.
What about you?
I think it's time. It's 2024. We're at the ripe age to understand that women contribute to a lot, we foster a lot, we are drivers in a lot of fields. So gender equality is very important. It's imperative to allow women to raise their voices for their dignity to be protected. And yes.
All right, thank you so much for joining us on this particular conversation, and thank you also for the work that you're doing with the refugees, and also thank you for the work that you're doing matters empowering women and girls, and specifically refugees, you know, refugee women and girls, and just being able to empower them so that they can be able to also fend for themselves and fend for their families. It was a pleasure having you on set today. Now, this is where we end this particular conversation on the protection of refugees and also matters International Women's Day as we gear up to the big day. And right now, I'll call it a close, but don't you go too far. More coming up right here on Good Morning Kenya.